Hey team, if we're supposed to be hearing you, we are not hearing you.
Each student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, regardless of race, gender, gender identity, ethnicity, ability, language, sexual orientation, religion, family background, or family income. Cada estudiante tiene acceso a los recursos y al rigor educativo que necesita en el momento adecuado de su educación, independiente.
Oh, she's reading it in Spanish. Nice.
Género, identidad de género, etnia, capacidad, idioma, orientación.
Marcy, we cannot hear. I don't know if we're muted.
We can hear
There we
you. We can
Now,
hear,
now we can hear you again.
okay, so we can hear you.
So can you mute yourself on your end though? All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
And the mission statement.
Yeah.
Each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life.
Thank you so much. Okay, we've already adopted the agenda, so we're been a bit out of order. Thank you for bearing with me. We'll turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. I'll be very brief and open this up. First of all, on behalf of myself and the Board of Education, I apologize for the delayed start as we address issues in closed session for our statutes that took us a little bit beyond our normal start time. So we will try to get our public caught up time-wise, but appreciate your patience as you waited for us, potentially in a virtual setting for us to start. I want to immediately begin with superintendent's report with an attachment detachment, and for that, I'd like to bring Ms. Lori to join me, Lori Levinsky, who serves as legal counsel for the Verona Area School District, to talk about our attachment detachment processes. The board, you were provided the documentation of the attachment detachment procedures in advance for your review. So Lori will just give a quick overview, knowing that you already have the information, and then allow time for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Clardy. As Dr. Clardy indicated, I'm going to go really high level on this. We are here tonight, the board is here tonight as a legal procedure. There was an agreement back a while ago between the district and the Madison Metropolitan School District, pursuant to which certain property that is currently geographically located within the village of the Verona Area School District would be detached from Verona and attached to MMSD under certain conditions. Those conditions have been satisfied, and thus pursuant to that contract, that agreement that your predecessor boards entered into with MMSD board, now is the time for the board to consider detaching that property and having it attached to Madison. Just for everyone's edification, the MMSD board has to go through the same process. They are doing so, I don't have their date memorized, but it is before the end of February. So they will be making the same considerations you have. So I wanted to give you that high level overview. I wanted to quickly summarize kind of what property. There is not a significant volume of actual parcels. And you have all of that data. I will represent to you that I'm 100% confident that the district administration has complied with what I would just call the conditions precedent to why we're here. And those are legal in nature, like there had to be notices sent out to those property owners and to the residents. There is, I think, an apartment building or maybe multiple. So it's not just the owners, it's the residents who have students in the district. So the requisite notices have gone out, and you have on your agenda briefly in the near future the availability for public comment on that issue. The important thing for the board to know is this was contemplated way back when. that this property would detach from Verona and attach to Madison. In that agreement, there is a provision that allows any existing student of VASD who is attending VASD up through the date of the actual transfer, which by the way is July 1, that's the magic date. So any student who's attending VASD and residing on these parcels has an absolute right to stay. Okay, we're going to communicate with them, and I've worked with the district to make sure that we get that notice out. They've already been informed of their right to stay at VASD. So none of your students who want to stay will be required to leave. And there are MMSD pays MMSD pays Verona for those students that decide to stay. But of course, those students need not stay. They would have the right to go to MMSD because the property will be transferred into MMSD. There is a map. Can we pull that up, Dr. Clardy? Because one of the anticipated, I kind of went through all that. The map here that we have shows they're small, they're tiny, but it will give you a perspective. Thank you, appreciate that, of what we're talking about. And you'll see 25 parcels. They are very small, but they do have certain residents who live on those parcels. And the purpose of this map is really twofold. Number one, to show you where these parcels are that are proposed to be detached from VASD, but also to give you, and let's see if I can make this work, one moment. Want to go? This map. This is a map that the district had assistance creating that kind of identifies not just those 25 parcels that we just got done with identifying on our last slide, but also shows, because one of the thoughts I had of the questions you might have is, okay, what else is out there? Like what other property might be detached from Verona and attached to Madison when those conditions precedent occur, right? And so this map, I know there's a lot to it, and it's in your materials board, but it does identify parcels that in the future could be attached. Now, I want to address what is likely to be attached at some point in the future. On the far left of your screen, you see an area that says predominantly undeveloped area. In green is the city of Madison's Shadywood neighborhood, for which the city adopted a new plan in 2022, likely to be annexed and developed in the city in a few years. So what that means is we think at some point in the reasonable near future, that property is going to be annexed, and that the trigger under the 99 agreement that detaches the property from Verona and attaches it to Madison is when the property is annexed. So that's a great example of that might be coming to you, not now, but in the future. There are other areas you'll see where we actually don't believe that while it theoretically could be detached from Verona, we don't think it's likely. A great example of that is in your top left, where it says purple 40 acres, including Meadow Road Estate subdivision, will likely never be annexed to the city of Madison by a city town of Middleton agreement. And the bottom line in all that is there's not likely to be an annexation of that property to the city because the town of Middleton and the city haven't entered into agreement. So we can't foreclose that from possibly being annexed, but it's highly unlikely. So this map is really not for today. It's for if you had questions about what other property could theoretically be annexed. But going back, the property at issue today is the 25 parcels that you see on the map before you. And the task of the board is going to be to evaluate whether though that annex or that detachment should occur. In your packet of materials, I did a board memo for the board. So I hope you were able to review that. It just sets forth the legal standard for your considerations of the detachment. And then last comment I'll make is that assuming you detach, you move to detach, and assuming the MMSD board moves to attach, The property will transfer effective July 1 of 2023. And again, residents will be allowed to stay, we'll reach out to them, but going forward, any new residents, any people that move onto those properties, into those properties and start school after that will have to go to Madison. Now, we're not talking about tons of students. Right now, there are 16 students on those parcels. So it's not tons of student population. And I'm not altogether sure how many of those students will decide to stay. By the way, just in case you're interested in, the right to stay applies not just to the students who are in our district right now, those 16, although some of them could be seniors. So, but it applies to any siblings by birth or adoption who live with them. So say we've got like a fourth grader, a third grader, and we've got, they got a brother or sister that's two. That's saying though the family will be allowed to maintain it. Now they're gonna have to maintain, they're gonna have to stay a Verona school district student, and then their siblings will be able to attend. So there's probably not gonna be tons of immediate student loss for you for this particular detachment. Last comment I'll make is this. I know most of you, I believe perhaps all of you, were not on the board when the board entered into this agreement. And I think it's really important to understand the nugget of why. The why for this detachment was really simple. It was, we got something then that we had consideration for, that we decided, parcels go to Madison, we can give them up. And the consideration you got then was a large tax base. So if you want to go back into the why, you might want to look into that 99 agreement to kind of understand like what brought about this agreement at some point in the future, these parcels may be detached from Verona and go into MMSD. And I think you'll see it was a negotiation. I wasn't around, but it was a negotiated agreement where there was a give and take. With that, I think the process you should use at some point in your agenda, I don't have it memorized. There is an opportunity for anyone who received the notice to come before the board to deliver their views of whether you should vote to detach. Aside from that, later in your agenda, you will have a very simple discussion over whether to vote to detach, and we have a resolution in your board packet that we prepared in advance. Happy to answer any questions for you. I wanted to keep that high level.
I'm a little bit confused that we have an agreement that says we will detach, but we still have to make it. It's like, what happens if we just say no?
That's such a great question. The answer is yes. We have an agreement that says upon annexation, the boards for the two school districts will approve the detachment. I would encourage the board not to get into a position where we're in breach of contract, but technically, under law, the detachment can't occur unless both boards approve it. And then you send requisite notices to various clerks and whatnot, which I fully, the district is fully on top of. So it's a great question. Like, why do we have to even vote on this? Well, there's a state statute that says in order to detach, you got to have an affirmative vote. And remember, when the 99 agreement was entered into, they weren't detaching it. What they were saying is, in exchange for this, in the future, if these parcels are annexed to the city of Madison, we will agree to detachment. So it's a good question, and it's a little bit of legalese. Yeah.
First simple question, is there a deadline then for which these families need to say we're staying or we're not?
Yeah. So we'll be reaching out, assuming both boards approve. The district administration will be reaching out. I believe we already draft letters that are, and in fact, in the notices that they got, they were informed that they have that right. But yeah, they're going to have to elect before July 1. Yeah, and then I believe the last time I spoke with Chad, and this might have already happened. I think Chad told me that he was going to have phone calls to all 16 of those.
It's already occurred.
It's already occurred.
Yeah.
So there's already that dialogue going on. I mean, I would be surprised if we didn't have a full and complete understanding of all 16 of those students within the next month or so. Right. Yeah, so the district's been really proactive. Obviously, with a small number of students at issue, we were able to kind of individualize that and give those families the attention that they needed.
And then just maybe, I guess, a comment, just because I've never heard of this. I'm
Yeah.
obviously a newish board member, but just, I appreciate all the why. I appreciate the understanding of how these things even come to be.
Yeah,
Just not knowing any of that. So thank you, like, just to give the board all of that background information and all the amount that has been shared with us, I found very helpful in that we can then share to the community too, just how do these agreements even come to be, the understanding of how we're situated as a current board in terms of acknowledging a contract that was already decided. I'm just very thankful to how much I have learned through this and recognizing that this is relatively common-ish
Yeah.
practice.
yeah.
Also, that's what I'm gathering.
I appreciate that. I would add this, like many people think school district boundaries are like, just aligned with like a municipality. And as you saw in the maps,
Yeah.
like those little areas are like surrounded by MMSD families.
Yeah.
So like, imagine you're like a kiddo and you're here and you're going to Verona and you is going to Madison and those little islands, we lawyers like to call them like islands. They exist by creature of when property gets annexed and so it is a little bit of a hodgepodge. I'm gonna give you that, but there is reason and method to the madness of how property gets put in one school versus another.
I'm a resident of Pittsburgh. I understand.
Yeah,
hodgepodge.
no, that's a great example.
So, yeah, but to see it in this way was really interesting. So thank you again for the information. And thank you to Chad, who I know isn't here, but all that he shared with us.
Just for clarification, you're saying current students that the July 1, the family has to opt in.
Correct.
If someone were an incoming, let's say an incoming K, that would not pertain to them. It has to be currently attending.
They do, that's the language of the agreement, yeah. So, and we've taught, there was, to my knowledge, only one family that asked about that, but I can't say there's only one family affected by that. But we talked about how, to the extent they could enroll before July 1, that would, we've talked about those things.
This is more for Dr. Clary, but I assume that these changes in the district boundaries are being built into our future forecasts that we're.
Any other questions?
I have one more thing to add. So I did talk with the consultant on those kind of future, like what might happen in the future. Those are largely rural parcels with not a lot of student population. So it'd be one thing if there was like an apartment complex, and in here we've got one of these parcels, I think has an apartment complex, memory serve. A lot of times when the property is attached should theoretically be before the development happens. So you're not losing students. So you don't have students that have to change school districts. This was one that I think the districts, Madison and Verona kind of were catching up on, right? So I share that with you.
I'm just checking to make sure I'm still in the district, otherwise.
I already checked.
I was outside. Right there.
But you're outside.
Any questions, Les? Well, for questions?
So it's okay, I would like to pause the superintendent's report, to allow you to move the forward action and let that go to the superintendent's report.
Okay, and so we have no public comment that's come in. With that, okay, is there anyone who is willing to make the motion? And the motion is on page 13 of the board presentation.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution detaching property from the Verona Area School District and attaching such property to the Madison Metropolitan School District pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 117.13 as provided in the draft resolution as presented.
There's a motion from Jen. Is there a second? Second from John. All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion has been approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Superintendent's report.
Yeah, you can have it back.
So Lori, thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm gonna head
out.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
really
everyone.
appreciate you.
Appreciate it. You bet.
We have so many lawyers here, Lori Jensen.
I know.
Because this is, we need to report our vote to MSD. If so, if you and I can get together, we want to make sure we have the language that was used, the total as presented by our board, and then we'll provide that to the MSD. I'm not sure what their vote, their board vote is. Thank you. All right, with that, I want to transition to our results policy. We'd like to invite members of the academic services team, Dr. Angela Hawkins and Ms. Karen Sykes Glover, to give an update on our progress monitoring for the science. All right, so as we prepare for the presentation from academic services, I'm going to ask our board to really shift your minds away from the way you have received results, progress monitoring for language arts and for math. Remember when we talked about, and just for some past history, board member White, we said there were going to be some that were specific progress monitoring that were built on student outcomes and results. And we also had some content areas that we're still building systems to allow for the policies to come to fruition. This is one of our first examples of our building capacity as a district to allow more results policies to come to life. So this report, as you probably noticed, looks significantly different. It's not grounded in data. It's grounded in, it's not grounded in quantitative data on student results. It's grounded in data, mostly qualitative on our progress and capacity building. Still important data, but just different type. Okay. So with that, I'll turn it over to our academic services team.
Good evening. So tonight we're reporting on R2 1.3 sciences. The VASD Board of Education values student learning, achievement that meets or exceeds grade level standard, as well as goal setting as a cornerstone of teaching and learning. The Board of Education expects all students to learn science concepts in an organized way during the school year and across grades, concentrating on a clear set of skills and concepts to solve real-world problems that our standards align. So in front of you, it says each student will be literate and numerate, able to achieve their personalized goals. Accordingly, each student will achieve at individually and appropriately challenging levels and acquire academic competencies in the following disciplines. And tonight, particularly sciences. And so as Dr. Cleary shared with you all, this is about capacity building. And so when we think about what does it take to adopt a curriculum of any type, we have work to do to build the capacity of the instructional team so that they can make wise instructional decisions. And so tonight, we're going to share with you the journey that our staff has been on this entire year, and even moving forward. Karen Sykes Glover, our Director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation, will share with you the steps that we're taking. She will also share with you our current state and our desired state, so that you all will have a clear understanding of the work that it takes to build the capacity of our educators so that we can make wise and sound instructional decisions. So that being said, what this says, we will know we've made reasonable progress when, in order to monitor and report student results for science, it is necessary to select and adopt the best comprehensive science curriculum and develop a program of science instruction that produces high achievement for students in natural science. The adoption of a science curriculum will ultimately lead to high quality standards aligned science instruction that includes a curriculum scope and sequence and metrics to measure student performance. So it's more than just opening up a catalog of curriculum and saying, I want this. So that being said, I will pass it to Karen Sykes Glover and she will share our journey.
So thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And before you begin, Karen, I just want to make sure that our public and our board and our staff fully understands that we have phenomenal science educators in our district. I just want to publicly state that, make sure that that's understood. We have not just phenomenal educators, they have delivered high quality science instruction. We also know, as we continue to grow and improve as a district and become more coherent, that we want practices that are aligned and meet the level of expectations of our board through our results policy. But I'd be dismissive if I didn't make sure that we understand that because we are building capacity that that's any type of indictment on the work of our science, because that's just simply not the fact. Phenomenal educators that do phenomenal work and have produced some phenomenal young scientists along the way. And I think but I wanted to name that. I think we all knew that, but sometimes we just need to articulate it out loud as we have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carty. And so to build on what Dr. Carty just shared, when we think about capacity building, in great part, we're thinking about how do we ensure that those phenomenal teachers have the resources that they need in order to continue delivering that high quality instruction that they already are. When we look at the ways in which our science teachers in particular are already leaning into their own capacity building, we're doing it specifically through our North Star district-wide goal of collaboration and disciplinary literacy. So we know that that dedicated work is already happening within science curricular K-12 through the lens of disciplinary literacy. And we are aware that that is essential to our capacity building as well. We also know that part of what we are doing to understand the current state of our curriculum is completing a curriculum audit. So that audit has just been finalized. We're looking forward to bringing forward a report to the board, hopefully at our next board meeting, to give you feedback or to give you the data on the high level learning that we accomplish in terms of needs and the gaps and both areas for curriculum. And science is certainly one of those areas, as I just said a moment ago, we want to be sure that our teachers are having access to the resources that they need. The other thing that we wanted to call out specifically is that we are leaning into capacity building in all curricular areas by having many of our staff, all of our principals, and members of their team participate in the Standards Institute for Undergraduate Education, which allows us to have that core experience of what great curriculum looks like for all of our school sites and all of our content areas, so that we can continue to build in this. Capacity building for us also refers to developing that coherence that we are talking about through our standards work that many of our teams are already doing at the grade levels. So we know that standards alignment has happened, that power standards work is happening, that assessment alignment is also happening in terms of capacity building with science. We want to be sure that we are supporting our students to have, our teachers to have the resources that they need. And we also recognize that part of what we need to do with the curriculum is to ensure that we have the resources specifically for our multilingual learners and our students with IEPs, and with our curriculum adoption and implementation model will allow us to do that. So our desired state, as Dr. Hoffman said, in our update to you, is that we would have a K-12 standards line curriculum with resources that are appropriate to the needs of all of our students in the district. That we would have a mapping, K-12 curriculum mapping to ensure coherence to that vertical alignment of skills in the sciences, as well as a progression in the standards and the horizontal alignment within the courses as well. That we will provide professional development and specifically in support of our teachers being able to work in PLCs to do the work of designing instruction and assessments. And again, that alignment of our resources specifically for our multilingual learners and our students with IEPs. So those are our specific goals for the assignments.
So when we think about our leadership moves, the things that we've done to build capacity in this area, we continue to have a district-wide focus on disciplinary literacy across all content. We continue to have a district-wide focus on developing structures for staff collaboration, as Dr. Weller just mentioned. We continue to look at our processes and look at the curriculum, and as you shared, there was an exhaustive curriculum audit process for ELA, mathematics, science, and social studies. And so we will be sharing the results of that audit, that exhaustive, like autopsy of what are we doing with curriculum. We participated in leadership development and Unbound Standards Institute, and so this was more than just our building leaders. We took instructional leaders. We took members of our academic services team, so that people have an understanding of the standards and what does it take to unpack the standards. We've developed and implemented school-based leadership teams, and so one person can't do the work alone. It takes a team to then cascade learning down. Creation of a new and more coherent organizational structure to align student services and academic services. Karen mentioned, making sure that our multilingual learners and our students with IEPs, that comes together in academic services when we're having those conversations, and we made sure, that we're not multilingual learners aren't an afterthought. Our students with IEPs aren't an afterthought. The conversation and the collaboration that happens with academic services around curriculum is critical to this. We also continue the implementation of continuous improvement plans and daily review cycles. So as we want to identify the curriculum, as we foresee that there will be metric that will allow us to review data in a very systematic way. And then again, the repurpose of our academic services central office team to position and to focus on teaching and learning and curriculum resources. I also want to add, Karen mentioned our desired state. Our current state would include, our teachers, as Dr. Clarity said, they're teaching science, but we also realize that our teachers are putting a lot of work into developing their own curriculum. And so when that happens, you have teachers doing this here, and teachers doing this here. And so, when we think about being a coherent organization, we want to make sure that all things are aligned. We also want to make sure, again, just to reiterate, a lack of, well, not to reiterate, but in our current state, a lack of aligned resources to support our multilingual learners and our students with IEPs specifically. Our two-way immersion, they have worked really hard to develop their science and social studies units, because that's how they immerse students in the language. We want to make sure that all of our students have those same opportunities. And we're doing that in an aligned and coherent way. So that being said, we are going to ask you all to accept the work that we've done. It's a green check. Karen will also just kind of share with you the picture. It just kind of highlights and reflects the good work that our team has done. And then also can you share the next team that's going and what will happen in the summer?
Sure. So the photographs that we wanted to include in the presentation tonight are from our recent trip to the Standards Institute for from down there. And at the Standards Institute, all of our leaders had some pretty significant moments of clarification about their role as instructional leaders specifically, and also their commitment to continuing to grow as instructional leaders. It was an immersive experience where they were in learning sessions from early in the morning until late in the afternoon, with opportunities for us to come together as a team to reflect on our learning. All of us were in different pathways, so some of our leaders were in a pathway for science, some were in math, some were in English language arts. And that gave us an opportunity to think about that sort of broad perspective of teaching and learning for our students. I think that probably the most important message and a consistent message from the Standards Institute, and one that we were clear about our goal moving forward too, is that every student will have access to standards aligned curriculum instruction every day in every classroom. And we want to make sure that we continue to deliver on that by ensuring that the staff has the resources that they need in order to do that. We will have another team of leaders attending the Standards Institute in June. And when those leaders return, that we will have them 3 days together as the two groups, where we will be immersed for 3 days in designing our new curriculum adoption and implementation model for the William School District. We knew that we couldn't get to that place of designing that model until we had the opportunity for all the leaders to have that experience. And again, with Dr. Clary's leadership, we were very clear we wanted all of our principals to have the opportunity to grow as instructional leaders in the work. So that work will happen in June. We will come forward with a curriculum adoption and implementation model that then will be utilized during the year next year to take us to our first adoption process and make a decision on the curriculum there. In addition, with that work coming out of the Standards Institute, beginning in August, we will move into the development of the teaching and learning framework, which is work that we will do with due diligence until April of 2024. We knew that we couldn't begin to do that work until we had finished the work of our strategic plan, the definitions of a journey of a lifelong learner, because our understanding of the journey of a lifelong learner is central to the work that we are doing in defining what our teaching and learning framework should look like. So all of those things, which were presented to you earlier in the year, various points in time, as a progression of the work, continue to be the work that we're doing, and all of it belongs to that specific support and vision and guidance that we want to offer to our teachers on the universities.
First, thank you so much, both of you. Hearing as I hear the rightfully so, the voices of board member Borgo and to some extent board member Murphy. When they talk about, I just want to be clear that coherence does not mean can't when we hear Blackbird. Because it's coming. And so when we think about, can you just proactively talk about the intersectionality of coherent systems that are resources while still allowing the flexibility of autonomy and decision making within the classroom setting?
Yeah, it really begins with understanding those standards. It begins with understanding those academic standards and being very clear about where the skills and what does mastering that skill look like in this. And with that understanding, that's when the true work of designing instruction comes to fruition. And great teachers, good teachers, all of our teachers know that in order for a student to achieve mastery in their classroom, some will get there sooner than later, some will get there through a different pathway of instructional design or instructional task, and all of them will get there. And so the purpose is to ensure that we have that coherence of standards and an understanding of the standards, and that when our teachers need whatever they need in terms of additional support and resources to support a variety of learners on that pathway to mastery, that we have ensured that place.
Absolutely.
We also learned and was confirmed for us at the Standards Institute, and I wanted to be sure that I put this into the space tonight too, is that for students who are not yet at grade level, we must continue to teach them at grade level with the expectation of a pathway to grade level mastery. And that's an acceleration versus remediation model. That doesn't mean that we don't have additional supports for students that they might need to work on some specific skills, but the classroom instruction still needs to be grounded in grade level instruction. Students having access to grade level instruction every day with the means to help them achieve mastery.
Yeah, I almost want to record that and have you say it, have it just read it over and over again, because that is our journey. Our journey is efficiency level, delivery of not just our content, but the skills that it takes to access the content. And it's our responsibility as education to figure out those means to allow access to happen, but we will not remediate or lower expectations. We will develop skill sets that allow access. That is our education.
The thing I like about that is knowing that it's regardless of the content we're talking about. We're talking about science, but my feeling is that you just described also does apply to math. And which we don't delineate what you've described, I don't believe, by what content area we're talking.
And the opportunity that we had again in the Standards Institute to have this shared learning experience together, a significant portion of our work was actually diving into standards in a content area, unpacking those standards, if you will, thinking about lesson design and instruction in those standards, and speaking specifically daily to scaffolding. How do you scaffold the instruction for learners who are both moving toward proficiency at grade level and those who have advanced beyond proficiency in grade level? So we did a lot of that work as well.
And learners that access in a different way.
Yes.
And that's the key nuances to it, that while there's so much flexibility in instruction because there's so many ways to get access.
Yeah.
So in closing, the design of a curriculum adoption and implementation model informed by the learning at the Standards Institute will support staff to make sound instructional decisions. High quality curriculum resources aligned to standards will support staff to make sound instructional decisions. Monitor and report student results for science. It is necessary to select and adopt the best comprehensive science curriculum and develop a program of science instruction that produces high achievement for students in natural sciences. We included the timeline of the adoption cycle and what that will look like in the year to come. And we were asking you all to approve this. 2.13, because we have achieved reasonable progress. So we made progress this year. Thank you.
So thank you, team, very much for your presentation. Want to stay close by for the questions. I'd like to turn it over to our board for discussion.
But so in looking at the timeline, is it piloting multiple possibilities in terms of a curriculum? How, are we, what is the piloting gonna be in terms of multiple things, a single thing, seeing how it works? Where do you feel that's going for next year?
Piloting or selecting?
Piloting.
When notice is there. Selection. I don't think we said that.
The third bullet point.
Yeah, under time and pilot materials.
Well, once we determine which, like when they bring curriculum resources, they often will give you materials to pilot. So are you asking who will pilot or how will that be done?
Just kind of any of those things, if it's how broad it may be, and will different teams potentially pilot different curricula, like to what scope, what is pilot
Okay.
kind of like? It doesn't have to be super in the weeds, but just curious.
Yeah, so we envision that the adoption process would include an opportunity to review carefully a number of curriculum resources. And in that process, there would be a piloting program where a teacher or group of teachers might take some of those resources, apply them in the classroom, and give some feedback on how specifically.
Yeah, I apologize. So some districts will pilot it for a year or two, and that's not where we're going.
Right.
As Karen said, teachers who are on the selection committee will take a unit, take materials, and then have conversation about how did it work, what resources that.
So, this is a broader question outside of this a little bit, but I want to get you all got you. So, you talked about this audit of curriculum generally across various content areas and coming up with a curriculum adoption process. Is that something at some point where you would kind of present like this is our adoption process to the board so that we can, the whole community can kind of see
Absolutely.
this is how we adopt curriculum? And then science, it seems like would be the first application of that process.
Science and or social studies. And so next month, we're presenting social studies. And so.
Very similar to and I think it's important, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think it's important to know how like intentional and complicated these things are. This is not people just deciding willy-nilly. This is a multi-year process that's done professionally. There are people that study this stuff even more than I do. And this is my day job. And I think it's really important to just highlight that. Throw it out there as often as we can in public. So yeah, I like this. Can't wait to see the process laid out.
So the process, just so you know, though, it will be a comprehensive process that includes the voices of our students, and includes the voices of our communities, of the parents, of the staff, and the students on this team that will help us begin to examine and look at, curriculum vendors are going to present you all the bells and the whistles, but we'll take time to, it's more than just the bells and the whistles. It's, how is this, the usability in the classroom? So, we'll take into consideration all the voices that will use the materials.
One of the things, I'm sorry, I just want to follow up real quick. One of the things in this adoption process is that I think I hear you saying, it's really exciting to me is that you're going to look for materials that are multi-level, built around the standards and expectations at grade level. So that we have a material in a classroom, whatever content area that might be, that can work for students at different levels in the classroom. I would be real curious in that adoption process to see where questions get asked that force who's ever doing the adopting to think in terms of multi-level materials and different pathways to learning, as Dr. Clary said, people learning in different ways. So that we're always asking those questions around how we're being more inclusive in the classroom for different learning styles and things like that, and people at different levels. Because that seems so crucial when we adopt these things, that we're not just getting some static thing, but that we're intentionally finding ways that it's dynamic. Yeah, okay, sorry.
And it comes back to the piloting, right? I mean, the usability becomes real when you let people use it. I mean, I've sat in plenty of those where you hear the conversation and you look at it, but until you've actually attempted to teach with it and attempted to figure out how flexible it really is.
Nicole has had her hand up, so I'm gonna make sure she didn't have a chance to jump in.
Thanks, Meredith. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding then the timeline, kind of what you're all building on to, and especially because we talked about, if we wanted to revisit different indicators or the reasonableness of them. Just so I'm understanding, it says the adoption of science curriculum will ultimately lead to the development of scope and sequence, which includes metrics to measure student performance in the 24-25 school year. So that means next year, while all of this amazing adoption planning, making sure our educators have time to understand the materials, we won't have anything to measure next year, but then the following year, we will have metrics to measure upon. Is that correct?
Yeah, next year,
Okay.
23-24 is still our capacity building. 24-25, we feel like we would have data to present to the Board of Education.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Yeah, can I ask one clarifying question? So, and this is also for anyone in the public who might be wondering. So I know at several places in here, it mentions K-12, so it mentions all the grade bands, or the audit applies to all the grade bands and the curriculum process applies to all grade bands. How at the high school level does a process like this correlate with, for example, like APs? Like if a student is going to be thinking about taking a science, that's an AP science, and I know families often when they go like the recent pathways showcase that we had, they'll explore those types of different APs that might be available. How do those dovetail with this kind of adoption movement?
Yeah, so the standards alignment in AP courses, right, and the college readiness standards would be part of that vertical progression of a student's science learning or math learning from kindergarten all the way through the graduation. So the alignment is there actually with advanced placement courses with the adopted standards. So it would be a continuation of that vertical alignment in that journey.
Okay, so in other words, just to clarify, it doesn't mean that those types of offerings like APs or project lead, whatever, any of those things necessarily have to go by the wayside for
Absolutely not.
They can be integrated into what you're talking about. And I just want to make that clear because I know a lot of families are familiar with those. So those would be part of what's offered, even though there may be other curriculum offered as well.
Absolutely.
So what you're speaking to, Christina, is OE 11.1.3, which says the course selection process provides all secondary students the opportunity to take selected courses of interest, and master schedules are built to support those selections. So the policy already requires for that.
And again, we're very confident in that vertical alignment of standards of progression, whether a student takes an AP course or.
I do want to just put in space because I anticipate us being together for a long time. That we are stickler. We'll continue to be a stickler for content, but we are pushing the team and thinking about future focused leadership and future focused education. it's skill development. That is actually the meat of all this. We have to develop skills because the content is ever evolving. And if you think about, just think about a senior that's getting ready to walk across their stage. In June. Yeah, that person is 2010. Think about our world in 2010 as compared to this right now. And think about how the skills and what they need are so different. So yes, we will, it's content, but we are development of skills or we're truly focused on. So you should see a both and as we're looking at the curriculum that we are putting in front of us.
You commented the other day that we're preparing a class of 2035, which gave me a bit of a heart attack, like, why would be alive then? Who knows? That's so long way. Math is not my strong suit, but it seems like it's forever away. 2035 is, so who knows what will, so I guess just to reiterate, the skills, I think are critical. I think as long as we're teaching how to problem solve, the skills are going to be what sees them through, because it's for a future that we can't quite necessarily wrap our head around. Any other questions from the board for? Hearing none. Is there a motion to?
Right.
Is there a motion to approve the report as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion from Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a second from John. Okay, so the board has now taken the presentation into our hands and we are free to discuss. Is there anything from the board's perspective that we would like to talk about? As I do want to just again remind everyone that we in October of 2022 approved the lengthening the timeline. I also want to just point out the intentionality of this work is very important and exciting to see. I think that seeing this is big. These are big shifts for our district, big shifts for our staff, big shifts for our students, and it's all very forward moving work, and it's being done intentionally, sustainably, and I am very grateful. This is a big shift from how we have operated just at the board level in the past, and we're asking a lot of our administrators and our staff to come along. So thank you. Anything from the board before we can take a vote?
Just wanted to reiterate that level of gratefulness and the continued focus on the fact that there are a bunch of amazing educators at our schools that get kids excited about science. I had a long talk with my 5-year-old about the importance of trees and oxygen, and she's nerding out in the best ways possible. And it is clear that our educators are just truly amazing. So thank you to everyone for calling out. This doesn't mean we don't teach science and we aren't spectacular at it. It means standardization is something that could help move all the children forward. So thanks for continuing to bring that up.
Thanks, Nicole, for comment.
And then it doesn't mean we squash creativity and flexibility in our
Yep,
educators.
yep.
Finding alignment either, that all of these things can be both and not replacing or substituting.
John?
There's one who nitpicks at words. There've been a couple of things that I think are worth highlighting here. I chafe against words like standardization, and I like words like alignment, precisely because of what we're articulating. I think collectively as a board and with the administration is that, you want alignment because that's how you know that the AP classes work with the scale and sequence, the scope and sequencing up, is because it's aligned through these standards, through a solid understanding of the skills necessary to do things in a progressive way up through. That's how you know it works. That doesn't mean that everybody teaches the same thing in the same way. And that's where when I hear Dr. Curdy talking about the importance of focusing on skills and not content, I think that's something that's really getting beat up in how we talk about schools today a lot. That people get so hung up on content. That's where kids get hurt because they need skills. And so the fact that we're working on a system here that centers content or centers skills rather, is really, really vitally important for our students. And the content, you know, is there, it happens. The world provides content. But the skills are at the core of what we do. The bickering about content, and that is an absolute waste of time. So I really enjoyed listening to this, because I think that some of the words here are really important.
So as the board goes forward, we're taking a look to see if we, do we agree that reasonable progress towards capacity building has been made. We have a motion and a second to accept as presented. Is there any of the board members who have discussion that would signify that they do not believe that reasonable progress has been made? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? Are there any other comments the board would like to make? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the report as presented, signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report's been accepted as presented. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing additional work. We look forward to seeing you again next time. We're social studies, but we also look forward to hearing how this process is going. So thank you so much for the work you're doing. Okay,
So with that, I'll close the superintendent report.
that sounds good. And it appears we have no public comment. So with that, let's move into board action. Oh, there. We've already taken care of A and B under board action, but we did have a couple things under C. So I actually wanted to, I know, Corby, I know you have a timeline, but I wanted to see if you were able to kind of let the board know you had some updates from stuff you've been off doing. Can you fill us in?
Oh, sure. So first of all, my apologies for not being able to be there. I'm in Washington, DC, where my lovely fiance presented today at the International Education Conference. And it went exceptionally well. Doing a lot of touristy type stuff here, visiting the sites, and the National Museum of African American History was just incredible. Which is a nice segue into something I did last week. I was asked by Brother Ibrahim Amara to stop by and speak to the Black Student Union. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, I want you to talk about you. I want you to tell your story. First of all, tell them, let them know you're on the board, why you chose to be on the board and pursue it, and then the events just leading up to everything. So I'm like, okay. First thing I noticed is when I said to them that I was on the board, they gave me a standing ovation right away. And I was like, whoa, yes. And I was like, okay, all right. Principal Cox was there, so I got a chance to talk with him for a long time, even after the meeting. But the main thing I got from that meeting with the BSU is our kids in the Black Student Union, they need to see us, because if they see us, they'll be us. And that resonated with me big time. And they stopped me afterwards. A lot of them just were asking me several questions. Darrell Connor's kids stopped and talked to me, and they were like, it's nice to see another Black man on the Verona school board, because their father was the first, apparently. And Meredith told me that, but I didn't think they would be there present, and they were, and it was nice to have a conversation with them. And Principal Cox actually came up with something that I talked to Dr. Clarity about. He said, you know, we should host an HBCU event at Verona. And he said, to me, the idea was great, because he said, you know, these kids hear from us. This is what you should do. This is how you fill out this information. But wouldn't it be better to have people there actually helping them fill out this information, being hands-on, and to show them that experience? And I said, that sounds wonderful. I participated in one last year at La Follette High School, and it was amazing. So just wanted to share that. And Principal Cox just seems incredible. Just the conversation I had with him for a half hour, I was blown away. with his intensity. He's definitely coming with a passion, with a purpose. And I don't know if everybody's met him yet, but just his story is intriguing. So if you get an opportunity, definitely talk to him, because yeah, I learned a lot about him as well and what he's been through to get to where he is. And it's pretty inspiring and motivational as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us that you get to go out and meet some with kids. That's
I know.
exciting stuff. So I'm sure that they appreciated your time, and it sounds like the time that they were able to spend with you was valuable for you as well. So
Absolutely.
really, thank you for sharing. We appreciate it.
Mhm.
Jen, you were next.
Yeah, so Meredith and I had the opportunity to attend the all staff meeting at the high school. Where Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Flaherty gave I don't even say an attempt, it was a miraculous way of taking all these months of strategic planning and attempting to sort of share that in a really concise, brief way with staff. To sort of catch them up on where we are in the process. And I'm saying we because I'm on the strategic planning committee. So to be able to be a part of that and to know that that's, you know, the same messaging that's being echoed across sites. So this was just one chance for us to listen in. So super impressed, Dr. Hawkins, at how you did do that in a concise, really clear way to sort of synthesize where we've been, where we're going. I appreciated so much the intentionality of building space in that time to give staff a survey. So not to just say, we're sending you a survey, check it on your own time, but it was carved into that space to really give folks, like, we recognize this takes time out of your day. So please do that now. We're here to help answer questions, you know, chat with your neighbor, but we really want your feedback. So it wasn't just saying we want your feedback, it was, and we're here to give you the time to do that. And just to give some forecasting and just the way that it really synthesized what we've set forth in policy as a board, how the strategic planning aligns to that, and that the work of the strategic plan is going to be lived and brought out in practice, that it isn't just so we can like check a box to have a really cool sign or a slogan or whatever, that it's really going to drive the work for the district for the next 5 years. So super excited, and we're back to strategic planning all day Wednesday and half day Thursday. So yeah, I'll be there. Super excited.
He talked to the weather.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. Yeah, we're not even talking about Thursdays again. It's just not, the Thursday thing is on.
It was really exciting to see the work that was done, and having not been part of the strategic planning process at all, it was really the first time I had seen like the overview, seeing how board policy is driving every piece of it. Just kind of reiterates the work that we are doing here at the table is directed in district. So it's good stuff. Christina, did you want to mention your?
Oh, yes, I had the privilege, I was just thinking that last week at this time, I was on a bus to New York City with a whole bunch of high school students, a long bus ride. So there were 6 motor coach buses that left from the high school, and I want to give a big shout out to the staff and the music department for organizing an amazing trip. There were 200 students, a little over 200, I think, and a whole bunch of chaperones and staff. And it was whirlwind. So we got there and we did so much of the time they were there. The students got to perform at a clinic at Long Island University, get some good tips from clinicians there, and choir and orchestra and band, and we got to an exchange concert with a quite large high school on Staten Island that had amazing music offerings. Their jazz band was amazing. And our students got to play for them, and they got to play for us, pizza lunch, and it was a wonderful trip. So many good memories, I think, for the students. Saw so many good sites, Statue of Liberty, 9/11 museums, everything, Broadway shows. My daughter loved the New York City Ballet. Some kids saw the Philharmonic. So it was just a whirlwind, but well worth the time. I got very little sleep, and I probably walked, I think one of the chaperones literally clocked like 30 miles on her like watch with the steps, like something like 25 to 30 miles of walking. So we all came home extremely tired, but what kudos I give to the music department for organizing such an amazing trip for our students.
That's
So,
yeah, good students.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was now a week and a half ago, I was able to, we had was it the regional sectional, what's the sectional for the FFA? Sectional. So we had, that was held here in Corona, so they were able to judge the extemporaneous speech of my son, so Howard, you qualified for that, so that was really uplifting. It was, it was really, really, it was amazing to see the level of talent and skill that these kids are coming with. And FFA, it wasn't something that I was familiar with, really. It is far more than what I had realized. The skills that were being taught, the level of knowledge that these kids were coming with, it was really a fantastic experience. So it was exciting to be able to be part of that. You know, we had, you know, it was a really good night. I think I got home at like 9 o'clock, so it was a very long night. I can imagine. But it was great, and it was just kind of highlights. There's so many great activities that are going on for our students that our kids have a chance to be a part of. And I think it's just interesting that in this 2-week period of time, there have been this many.
Yes, I would say our community, whenever I like just participate in the trip, I'm amazed at our community support for our students and our schools and the number of chaperones that step forward and volunteer to give them a bus for 50+ hours to go to New York City. It's amazing to me, and that's one of the reasons I love being part of all of my students. I think so much of our community, whether it's FFA, music department, Black Student Union, people just come forward to support.
Well, I think it also speaks to the staff that are willing to go out of the way to spend their time to put these different opportunities in place for our kids that are really worthwhile and really paying off dividends for our kids. So, any other updates from the board?
Yes.
You can jump on
So I just want to quickly do a reminder that tomorrow is the Battle of the Books, elementary Battle of the Books here at the high school. You know, Teresa Voss, who we all know, love and enjoy, does a phenomenal job of embracing our North Star of disciplinary literacy. You see that come to life. And the interaction with our elementary students is just phenomenal. In a kind of a space and some places in society that are pushing away from literacy and books, we are embracing it and encouraging that true engagement. I'm just so appreciative of not just Teresa Voss, but everyone that's involved in our Battle of the Books, knowing that the foundation of our ability to develop skills is literacy and numeracy, and knowing how important that is to all of our students. So come to the beautiful high school if you want to see a smiling child with a book in their hand. It's a beautiful place to see it tomorrow.
The child will not smile if I walk in.
She we have to cover smiling. And then I just want to thank the Board of Education for their both trust and support in allowing me to pursue national certification for superintendency. It began that process last week, and it'll continue into next year. But just even in the first few days of training and development, just being able to place my skills with other superintendents from around the nation, be able to learn and grow. And, this endeavor that we're on around future focused leadership and making sure that we're preparing our students for skill sets of what will be, and we don't know what that will be. So how important skill development is along the way, and really just a profound shift that I took away is that, sometimes I found myself really wanting to sometimes catch up in the sense that I thought we were behind, and knowing that if we lead in a way that we're catching up, you'll always be behind, because the future doesn't wait for anyone. And so I really shift our focus to let's move into the development of skills and what will be, and making sure that our students are truly positioned in alignment with our mission statement. You think about, I don't know what we planned at the time, we were just far more brilliant than you give yourself credit to, but you built a mission statement that was actually future focused leadership. That's really what that was. And that's what I'm so proud to be able to lead and work in this district that has that mindset of where we're going, not sitting stagnant, not catching up where we ended up.
I'm gled you mentioned that, national superintendent. That's, I think, such a great, everything personally, but also what are you representing to our students, that this is a learning is a lifetime process, and that we are always learning and continuing to achieve. So that's really wonderful with our kids that at every level we're learners.
So the journey of a lifelong learner is everyone in our school community. So every adult. But again, just want to thank the board for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Okay, anything else from the board? With that, we can move into superintendent consent agenda. Are there any questions? Any items presented? Okay. Go ahead. Hearing no questions, superintendent's consent agenda has been adopted as presented. 212.
And thank you. So thank you, board, for the acceptance of the, especially the payroll and the personnel item. Just wanted to publicly acknowledge and celebrate as part of that, the hiring of our new principal for Badger Ridge Middle School, Dr. Larry Love. Dr. Larry Love will be coming to us from the Madison Metropolitan School District, where he served as a building principal at the elementary level and assistant principal at the middle school level, corporate AVIC coordinator, and special education teacher. Also holds a doctorate with his focus on special education, so well-rounded in education practice, and we could be more happy to have him join our family and what it means for our students. Both in his expertise and I'll honestly say his representation as well. Representation matters, and we are very powerful with nothing but things.
Very exciting. Thank you. We can move on to board consent agenda. Any questions about the items in the board consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been adopted as presented. Future agenda items, looking ahead, we have the March 6th and March 27th board meetings. March 27th, well, a week because of spring break. And April 3rd board meeting, April 4th, we have elections. That date on the calendar. And then April 17th, we also have a board meeting. Also tomorrow is our primary. So keep that in mind. Please vote. Are there any other upcoming agenda things? No, I think we're good. I feel like there was something else, but with that, is there a motion to adjourn? I have a motion from Jen. Is there a second? Second from Joe. All in favor, signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned. Courtney, enjoy the rest of your.
Yeah, enjoy. Travis back. Feel
Thank
better.
you.